in the United States of America for the past couple of years, that once again, he is withdrawn from the NPC Nationals at just a couple weeks out. This is the second, maybe the third year in a row. I believe he's pulled out of 4 pro qualifiers in the past couple of years. So let's take a look first at his statement. Comments were turned off, but here's what he had to say so that the facts came straight from Elliott himself. So these pictures, he took a couple selfies in the hospital. It saddens me to announce my competition season is over for 2024. He had just done a qualifier. We'll take a look at that. I want to be as transparent as possible in the hopes that a young man might learn from my mistakes and experiences. At the beginning of the week, I checked myself into the hospital with a variety of alarming symptoms that I could no longer just attribute to prep or being sick. I had extremely low blood pressure, dizziness, lightheaded, heart rate that hadn't been under 110 for a week, chest pains, muscle spasms, difficulty breathing, extreme fatigue, weakness, inability to sleep, alongside a few more. Yikes. Upon arriving at the hospital, it was discovered that I had serious blood clots in my lungs and heart. They were putting my heart at serious risk, as well as rhabdomyolysis. If you had followed me for a minute, you know, this is my 4th time having rhabdomyolysis. And this honestly came as a shock to me. For the first time in my life, seemed like the minor issue at hand. Just to interject for a minute, if you don't know what rhabdomyolysis is, it is going into kidney failure, basically, because you have so many byproducts, so many toxic things from muscle breakdown, and it's overloading the system. The muscle is breaking down at a rate much, much faster than it's supposed to. This happens to CrossFitters sometimes, people that try CrossFit for the first time, like DLB. Supposedly this happened to her a few years back. I do know a friend of my wife who tried CrossFit and was hospitalized with rhabdomyolysis. It's that so many waste products flood the kidneys from that muscle breakdown so fast that you go into kidney failure. It's a very scary thing. So he continues, at first I was hopeful I would still be able to compete in December, but with how long of a hospital stay, they wanted me to stay for days upon days, it would be. And the advice from those in my corner and the doctors, we decided to put my health first over something that will be there next year. I want the message taken away from my mistakes is that the basics do work. You do not need crazy high doses. And the next best thing will never match the hype. I was taking far too much, and I do not necessarily even mean AAS. So I'm guessing what he means there is things like SARMs, peptides, research chemicals. He is sponsored by a research chemical company. He's not going to put them on blast. I understand that. I was without my coach's permission. That's important. I believe Dom Cardone is his coach. So he's not throwing the coach. And guys, we're not putting Dom here on blast because he wasn't listening to his coach. I was without my coach's permission trying and taking products and compounds that I believe, and medical professionals, caused all this to happen, at least to a certain degree. In the same breath, I was making mistakes daily of overdoing my cardio, over dieting, over training, using too much caffeine, taking on too much workload, etc. If I had just followed what was in my email every week from my coach, then I do not believe this would have happened. I'm deeply sorry to everyone that supported me, encouraged me, looked forward to seeing me on stage, and helped me along my journey. I'm getting healthier every day, and I'll have an amazing 2025, which I'm grateful to have the opportunity. So this is alarming because he is only 25 years old. He's the same age as my son. He's very, very young. And he's been hyped up as the next big thing now for a couple years. Understandably so. Look at this transformation from before he started bodybuilding to present day. This is actually almost a year ago, these pictures were posted. But just this is a pro caliber physique. You know, we talk about a lot of us older guys complain it's too easy to turn pro nowadays. We're getting guys turning pro. A lot of them are never going to make any impact at the pro level. I do not feel that way about Elliott. The potential he has is phenomenal. Just this crazy, thick, dense muscularity that he has. So thick, so huge. Really good shape as well. Should be a pro by now. It's not that there's any rush to do that. It's just that he's had this physique for a couple of years now. He's had a pro caliber physique. So this was last year. Last year when he was had to pull out of the show. This was posted in 2023. Yeah. So he had been having health problems last year getting ready for a show and ended up in the hospital. I'm not sure what that is. Is that his arm, his leg? I don't know what that is. Yeah, just such an impressive physique for this guy. These were some update shots taken last week. You can see he's ready to roll. He's in great condition. Certainly top 2 in the super heavies, top 2 in every class at NPC Nationals earned professional status. I find it hard to believe there would have been more than 2 other guys in the super heavyweights who would have been able to beat this. Like I said, he's not lacking anything. He's thick all over. Great muscle quality with striations, good clean separations. Look at that side leg. Great splits and striations in the quad from the side. Nice deep chasm there between the quadricep and the hamstring. Midsection, very nicely detailed. Quads are feathered with cross striations. Very, very impressive physique on Elliott. Side try, great shot. He doesn't have, if I could point out one weakness, it would be from the back. He is not as impressive, not quite as wide and thick. He does need to work on more back thickness. You can see there, he doesn't look as huge from the back. The glutes were already in, look at that. So that would be something moving forward, but that's, I doubt he would have issues. Like I said, good rear double bi. Could be better with more back thickness, but certainly pro caliber, certainly belongs on a pro stage. Conditioning, not an issue with this guy. He seems to get in shape every time. It's just he can't make it to the finish line. He can't get to the contest. Oh, there's Trump. Look at this. So this was a show he did last weekend or a week ago. What's the name of the show? Monster Classic, I think it was. Yeah, I think he's got a posing video from it too. Condemned Labs, his sponsor. Yeah, great. Look at that, great taper. Small waist for a guy that I wish I knew what he weighs. I don't know if anyone knows what he weighs. So here he is posing at the qualifying show a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Monster Classic. I'm not sure where that is. I believe he lives in Florida. But so this was 3 weeks out from Nationals because he had to requalify. Because Nationals, you have to qualify every year for it. And yeah, he looked great. He was well on track to, potentially, we don't know who else was going to be there at the Nationals, but potentially winning his class in the overall. Who knows? I mean, he's got an amazing physique, this kid. I say kid because he's the same age as my son Christian. It's hard for me to believe looking at this at the same age. But geez, look at that. Rarely do you see the chest striations like that in a front lat spread. That is just phenomenal. So it's refreshing actually for me to see that much muscle quality on someone so young and with so much mass. A lot of times we see plenty of mass, but there's not a lot of detail. There's not a lot of separation. It's just kind of like a big blob of muscle. He is not that. He's very conditioned, got great muscle maturity, as we call it. This was the 2024 Monster Classic a couple weeks ago. And yeah, he won that, of course. That was a qualifying show. The pec wave, here he is. Yeah, look at the muscle control there. It's like an old-time strongman with old-time bodybuilders used to do things like that. Calls it the pec wave. It's pretty freaky, isn't it? Yeah. What was this? Oh, they gave him a little sponsorship. Somebody gave him, was that when he won the show? Oh, Condemned Labs. Condemned Labs gave him an extra $2,500 toward the Nationals. Yeah, cool. He's been with them for 9 years. Couple comments. I'm going to put a real quick clip of him on while we get to your comments. Why do bodybuilders still do this? There's so much info out there and have been many tragic disasters. Why do people do this and don't learn? So the high doses, he admits in his post that he was taking a lot more than what his coach wanted him to take. And he's learning, after several horrendous instances where his health was in grave danger. I mean, these were life and death things. Blood clots in your heart and lungs, guys. You people die from that every day. So he's learning the hard way. And after all this, that more isn't better. He's going to back off the doses. But I believe there is this sort of peer pressure on all these guys now at that level to use more and more and more because they're worried about being beaten by someone just because that person's using more PEDs than they are, higher doses, different substances. We're not talking just steroids. It's peptides, research chemicals. Of course, you have growth hormone, insulin, IGF-1, a lot of different things that are being used. And I believe it's just an insecurity thing. They're worried that if they back off the doses, they're not going to be as good. But the problem with this is if you've never tried lower doses, you don't know if those would have worked just as well. So what I'm hoping happens is he's going to back way off the doses of whatever he was using, cut it in half at the minimum, and probably find he's going to look just as good, maybe better. You wouldn't really believe how many coaches I've talked to who work with athletes and they take their doses way down. They cut it in half or less. And not only do they look the same, a lot of times these guys look better because they're in better health. The more and more PEDs that you take, if you take grams and grams and grams, I mean, it's very possible, it's very probable you're going to impact your health in a horrible way to the point where it's going to affect your gains and you won't be able to hold as much muscle because you're not healthy. You do need to be reasonably healthy to be able to train, to be able to get food down. If you're always nauseated, if you feel like shit, if you're fatigued, you're not going to have great workouts. If you can't get the good food down every day, those 5, 6, 7 meals, whatever it is, you're not going to have the same physique. So being in optimal health or as close to optimal health as you can possibly be while on all these PEDs that bodybuilders use, that's key. So what happened to him, Goku? He pulled out of the Nationals for what I believe is the third year in a row. He's only 25, so it's not like he doesn't have time on his side. He does, but he needs to chill out. He needs to get back off on the doses. And I can't tell him what to do, and I don't know what research chemicals and peptides and things like that he was using and in what amounts, but clearly his body cannot tolerate these things. He's very, very fortunate that he's okay, or hopefully he's going to be okay. I wish him the best. I certainly have no ill intent. Like I said, he's the same exact age as my son. My son is 25 years old, and as a dad, I hate to see anything happen to young people, not only for themselves but for their parents. I mean, my heart still breaks every day for John Lloyd, Boston Lloyd's father. I know him just a little bit from meeting. I only met him in person once, and we've chatted a couple of times on Messenger and stuff. And, my heart breaks because this guy lost his son at only 29 and he's still here. I mean, parents are not supposed to outlive their children. Anyway, but getting back to Elliott, like I said, he's sort of a symptom of the times, that the current society we're in with bodybuilding, with social media, where it's become like a badge of honor and sort of like bragging rights for people to talk about these high doses and I'm on this much tren, I'm on 2 grams of tren a week, and I'm on 20 IUs of growth and this and that, and 4 anadrols a day, and it's like a daredevil thing. And you also have guys who I won't name who they go on podcasts and they list all these crazy cycles that they're using, that they're on, the following, and they claim to be in perfect health. So that encourages people. Not only that, they say, until I radically increase my dose from 2 grams of gear a week to 7 grams, 6, 7, 8 grams a week, I didn't see the real results. So that right there tells all the young people watching, okay, I know that I need steroids to look like that bodybuilding physique that I aspire to look like. But now I know that reasonable, moderate dose won't do anything for me. I'll get crap results. I'm only going to look the way I want to if I go incredibly high on the doses. It's putting a terrible message out there. I call this gear porn because there are a couple podcasts that, from what I've seen, their main draw is having guests on that talk about crazy, crazy cycles and the great gains that they get, and oftentimes not putting out there the fact that they're having side effects. I mean, this Togi guy, how do you say his name? I don't know. Toji's in poor health again, and this is a guy that a lot of the youngsters look up to. But what happens when one of these guys falls into poor health and is hospitalized or whatever, I don't think it's a cautionary tale. I don't think his followers will learn anything from that, because we all do this, but especially when we're young, we think something bad happened to him because he did X. Y happened to him. But if I do X, Y won't happen to me, because nothing bad can happen to me. That bad things happen to other people. They're not going to happen to me. It's just the way we think. It's just the way we're made, especially as young men. We're fearless. We're reckless. We feel invincible. We feel immortal. That's why the armies of the world, going back to the dawn of time, have always been made up of very young men, because young men are fearless. They feel like they're never going to die. Nothing can hurt them. They have no problem running into 1,000 guys with swords or 1,000 guys with machine guns ready to kill them, because nothing's going to happen to them. Why wouldn't he seen it coming in his blood work? I don't know how often he was doing blood work. Yeah, things like this. I doubt it was a sudden onset of all these symptoms. To have all the symptoms he was going through sounds like they'd been building up for a while, but he didn't go into detail on that, so I don't know. Caleb Pike, my man. I was working the hospital and Army basic training post. Every year we got dozens of rhabdomyolysis patients who were new soldiers not used to being physically active. Yeah, I could see that, because basic training, very, very physically demanding in all the armed forces. I could very well see rhabdo. And I bet in the old days it wasn't diagnosed, it wasn't even treated. They just had to suffer these recruits with their kidney failure. I assume if it was bad enough, they would have had to go to the medic or the hospital or whatever you call it. But yeah, too much creatine. Well, you're really not that far off, because it's creatinine, high creatinine levels are an indicator of liver stress and liver damage. And this is rhabdomyolysis, one of the issues he is facing. He's had it 4 times in the past year. It is kidney failure. You're going into kidney failure from too many toxic byproducts from the muscle breakdown. Dan Cardillo, what's up? What's up, bro? How are you? Do you know the health problems were shortness of breath? Yeah. So he actually, let me go back to his original post here, and he detailed the health problems. He had extremely low blood pressure, dizziness, lightheaded, a heart rate that had been under 110 for a week. That's a very high resting heart rate. Chest pains, muscle spasms, difficulty breathing, extreme fatigue and weakness, inability to sleep, alongside a few more. So he didn't even bother listing all the symptoms. There were so many of them. When he got to the hospital, it was discovered he had serious blood clots in my lungs and heart. They're putting my heart at serious risk, as well as rhabdomyolysis. So as you guys know, blood clots get stuck. What's that called? What's it called when that happens? It's a thing you die from. Oh, geez. Come on, guys. Help me out. If the blood clot gets stuck, pulmonary embolism, it's an embolism. So the most common thing you hear about it is in the lungs. You have pulmonary embolism and you die, but an embolism can happen anywhere. A blood clot where the blood stops flowing in your body and you die. But as pulmonary embolism, it can happen in that you can have a blood clot that stops your heart from passing the blood through. Yeah. So, and the message he wants people to know is the basics do work, and he just means probably basic gear. You don't have to go crazy with all these extraneous peptides and research chemicals that, as bodybuilders, we want every possible advantage over our competitors. Enhanced bodybuilders, that translates to, I need to take everything that everyone else out there is taking, because if someone else is taking a couple things I'm not taking, they might beat me, because those are going to give them an advantage over me. So the prevailing attitude is, I need to do everything because somebody else out there that's competing against me might be doing everything, and I need to do the highest dose I can afford or tolerate, because somebody else might beat me because they're using more than me. It's just the way we're wired. It's just another version of what's that word I'm looking for? Muscle dysmorphia. Yeah, muscle dysmorphia. Yeah, but This guy should be a pro, man. This guy should be a pro by now. He's got plenty of time. He's still a young man. He's got time on his side, but still. Yeah. Togo was just hospitalized for overdose. Yeah, I saw that. But again, I don't think people are going to learn from it. And I think people think they might even think that's a great accomplishment, that he was willing to risk so much for having muscles, for having a good physique. And Toji didn't have a great physique by any means, guys. It was okay. It was decent. It was nothing. I see better physiques than every day at my gym. I go to a pretty big gym with a lot of serious trainers and competitors, but still, it's nothing that I would want anyone to risk their life for. And he was risking his life. Marco Barrick, it can be everything combined. I agree. Training gear, food, supplements that are too much stress on the body. In the end, it depends how much person their body can tolerate and handle everything. I know guys on 5 grams of gear with no side effects, while some need to drop everything on 1 to 2 degrees. So much side effects, it's crazy. Yeah, we are not all the same. We do not all tolerate steroids and other drugs the same. I mean, Tren is just one easy example to point to. Some guys can take 300, 400, 500 milligrams of Tren a week, no issues. When I took it, I had more mental issues than anything else. I did have some trouble sleeping, but I never got the Tren sweats. Tren cough when I injected. I don't care about that. That went away after a couple minutes. But I didn't get crazy liver damage or anything like that from Tren. I think it did contribute to my hair loss, but I know other guys who, after just 2 or 3 weeks on Tren, they had blood work done to see what was going on, and they were horrified, and they had to stop immediately because they saw so many things. Their kidney, their liver values were so elevated that there was already a significant damage being done. We don't all tolerate these things the same. It's been said that part of what makes pro bodybuilders, some of them successful as compared to others, is that their bodies can seem to tolerate larger amounts of PEDs for extended periods of time without a lot of damage to their system, whereas others, their health starts to decline rapidly. They have side effects, they have health issues, kidney, liver, heart problems. They just pile up. And, so many of us have been vaccinated. That does not help matters because they call it the clot shot. So we know that it can lead to blood clots. And we've had a lot of young people die of heart attacks, young, healthy people. Steroids also increase your hematocrit. They thicken the blood, increase your red blood cell count. So they can lead to blood clots too. So you put those two things together in one person. And we've lost a lot of bodybuilders over these last 3 years since the vaccine was introduced. I'm not blaming the vaccine 100%, but the vaccine plus heavy steroid use seems to be an awful, awful combination that I believe has killed a lot of people. Yeah, he almost died, and he's not even a pro yet. Correct. He should be a pro. He's got a pro caliber physique. I mean, look at that. This would be right at home on a pro stage, what we're looking at. So many guys that I see that are getting ready for nationals, I'm like, yeah, maybe you'll turn pro, but you're going to need a little while. You're going to need a couple of years after that before you're really ready to do any damage as a pro. This guy already has everything he needs. He's got all the mass, and he's got it well conditioned and seasoned. Great detail. Yeah, like I said, I'm not putting this guy. I wish him the best. I hope what happens after this is that he cleans out his system, does whatever needs to be done, and comes back next year using much less. And I bet he'll find he looks just as good. He doesn't need any more size. He's got all the size he's going to need, except on the back. I will say I would like to see more back thickness on this guy, a little more back width, because from the back, he is not as impressive. But from the front, from the side, he's got it all. Yeah, the back's kind of shallow. But geez, look at that. So no, he's not a pro yet, but he's definitely pro caliber. He's good enough to be a pro right now. And it's unfortunate that these health problems keep knocking him out. But I don't know how many times hopefully this has got to be the last time this is going to happen to him. I can't imagine he's going to make these mistakes again, where 3 years in a row, 3 years ago, he could have probably been a pro 3 years ago at 22 years old, which would be very young, and it would be laudable. We don't have too many guys turning pro that young that are good enough to be competitive on the pro stage. I think he would have been right there. And he still will. He still can be. He just needs some time. He just needs to get healthy now, come back next year and be much more reasonable and moderate in his PED use. He admitted himself. I really applaud Elliott for being so transparent and not trying to play it off as, I got COVID or I got a flu, or he's not blaming it on some mystery ailment or trying to hide behind the true causes. He says flat out, too many PEDs and not necessarily just steroids, which implies that it was other substances, probably things like SARMs, peptides, these research chemicals. There's something YK11 or something that I don't even know what YK11 is, but someone said he was using a lot of that. I don't know. I don't know that. I'm just throwing that out there from some comments I saw on another, because everyone's made every media platform, everybody with an Instagram reporting page about bodybuilding has made a post about Elliott in the past 24 hours. He's a fool. Macho Desperado says he's a fool. Well, I'll tell you, if this happens to him again, I'm going to say he's a fool. The fact that this is the third or fourth time he's had to back out of shows due to health problems. Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that he's an intelligent guy, but a lot of you out there can relate to this. You can be very intelligent and not have a lot of common sense, or you can also be very intelligent yet have no objectivity when looking at yourself or in the decisions you make for yourself. Like, he's a coach. He might be a very good coach, and he might have other people doing things in a much healthier, more reasonable way as far as doses and substances that are being used. But when it comes to himself, he probably felt, I'm just speculating, I'd love to get an interview with him if he would grant me one. He probably felt that, I need to do all this because if I'm not doing it, someone else might be, or if I'm not doing all of this, I might not look good enough. And there's that fear that if you're not using this much, then you're not going to look as good as you could have. And he wants to look as good as he can to win that pro card. And man, the ironic thing is, had he been using far less, I'm sure he would look as good, maybe even better somehow, maybe even better. And he'd be a pro by now, or he'd certainly be heading into this Nationals still as the favorite. And I find it hard to believe he wouldn't make top 2 in the super heavies. Super heavies typically aren't the most competitive class. They're not the best class. You have a lot of guys with crappy shape in the supers. You have a lot of guys who should have dieted down to heavyweight, but they came in too heavy and the condition wasn't there and they're super, or they're just tall. The only reason they're super heavyweight, they're over 225 and a quarter, is because they're like 6'2", but they might be 6'2" and 230 and look, like a string bean compared to the shorter, thicker, stockier supers. Wild as the Taliban with Rolly Winkler in the avatar. It's a great shot of Rolly. I give him credit for being transparent, not say he got food poisoning or robbed by ninjas like old school bodybuilders. Yeah, it would have been so easy for him to concoct a story or blame it on some mystery illness, some fake illness that he didn't have. So to allay suspicion, to sort of divert attention away from PEDs, but he's being very open and honest about that. And it's not easy because he knows when he did that, he turned off the comments on his own because he knows he's going to get trolled hard. There are going to be a lot of people who congratulate him and say, thank you for being honest, and I wish you the best, that's how I feel. I appreciate his honesty, and I do wish him the very best. Hope he gets healthy. Hope he comes back better than ever next year, doing things a safer, more moderate way, gets that pro card, and starts doing well on the pro scene. I love seeing new talent coming up the ranks. It's exciting to see new faces up there on the pro stage, especially younger guys. It's a cool thing because then you're going to be, if they play their cards right, this is somebody you're going to be seeing up there for a while, for years and years. You're going to be watching them get better and better. And we've had the privilege of seeing a few guys like that, of course, many guys like that over the years. Yeah. So again, I appreciate Elliott Dermond's honesty, and he does recognize what the problem was. I mean, he told the doctors, he was upfront, and that's another thing I give him credit for, because many, many times bodybuilders will have serious health issues that they know is caused from whatever gear or other PEDs they're using, they're running, the cycle they're running, and they'll go to the doctor, but they're afraid to tell the doctor what they're doing, either because they think they're going to get judged harshly by the doctor, or they don't believe They believe the doctor's going to tell them you have to stop, and they don't want to stop using all this gear. Or they're even worried about legal consequences, like, oh no, this doctor might call the police and say, this guy's in my ER right now, and he's on Tren and Test and Deca and Primo and Anadrol and GH, and come down here and throw him in jail, which doctors aren't going to do that. They're not going to call the police on you guys. If any of you ever have health issues, any kind of issues, or even suspicions that you have health issues, please do not hesitate to get medical attention. At least go to urgent care, get your vital signs checked, get some blood work done. You know, a lot of times as men, we're afraid to go to the doctor, or we don't want to know. If something's wrong, we'd rather just not know about it. It's like an ostrich sticking his head in the sand. It's like, maybe it'll go away. If there's a problem, maybe if I ignore it, it'll just go away. Well, health issues, especially from PEDs that you're continuing to use, they're not going to go away. They're just going to get worse. So never, ever hesitate, guys, to get medical attention. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. You have everything to lose, potentially. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of people that have died because they just didn't want to go to the doctor, or they thought things would just resolve, these issues would resolve on their own, and they didn't. I mean, just a tiny, almost very unrelated example, but a woman my wife worked with, this happened about 10 years ago. Her husband had bad headaches for a couple weeks, didn't do a thing about it. She kept saying, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. I think it had been going on for close to a month. He was getting awful, awful headaches. And one day he dropped dead in the shower, and it was a brain aneurysm that death probably could have been prevented had he gone to the hospital. We hear stories like this all the time. You know, men especially, we don't like going to the doctor. We don't feel it's necessary. But geez, guys, I'm going to put that other Elliott thing up again. We'll go back to your comments. Kalyan, thank you. I'm doing fine. Thank you, Kalyan. Appreciate the rupees. Macho Desperado, if I have a headache, go to a doctor right away. And this guy got gazillion sense of health issues, a point of edge of death. Yeah, he very well, like I said, embolism. That's when there's a blood clot that's preventing your blood from flowing through your body. When your blood stops flowing through your body, your brain your heart will stop beating pretty soon. Your brain starts functioning. You're done. You die. I mean, this is very, very serious. So, oh my goodness, I'm very happy that he did that. I mean, headaches, guys, this is just in general. If you have anything that's not going away, it's not going to go away on its own. Headaches, like my son was having bad migraine headaches. He still does. I believe better safe than sorry. I'm not going to ever skip having my kids. I'll drag them to the ER. I'll drag them to the doctors if I have to, kicking and screaming. They're not kids anymore. They're adults. But you know, with my son, he was having migraines, and we had a CAT scan on his brain done to make sure there's nothing going on. He's had blood work done, and we're just trying different migraine meds for him right now. But still, you can't ever ignore stuff like that. And his issues were so bad. I'm going to go back to that again because this is terrifying to think that these things were happening to a 25-year-old guy, a 25-year-old man who should be, you know, the picture of health. Yeah, let's get rid of this. Go back to, yeah, so I'm going to put that, let's see if I can make that bigger on the screen. Yeah, I can. Yeah, so look at these symptoms, guys. No joke. Extremely low blood pressure. High blood pressure is bad, but so is low blood pressure. You don't want either one. Let me get rid of this comment for now. Extremely low blood pressure. Just upon arriving at the hospital, discovered I had serious blood clots in my lungs and heart. They're putting my heart at serious risk. Yeah, that is just insane. Having rhabdomyolysis 4 times, that is not normal. Rhabdo is like Caleb pointed out a few comments ago. Typically, that's a shock. Someone who's either never exercised or they've never exercised intensely, and then they're thrust into some situation where they put themselves in some situation where they're working out like crazy. Like this happens. It's very, very common in CrossFit, especially when people go into CrossFit for the first time and they're not prepared, which shouldn't happen. They have beginner classes that everyone should go to, or they try some crazy workout that they know and deep in their hearts, they were not ready for that. It's way too intense. There's too much going on for them, but they did it anyway. I'll put his posing video up again. Yeah, what the heck? What we're talking. So back to your comments. Macho Desperado. I need to bring this guy here on a live so we can have a conversation. I wouldn't do that because I know people are just going to troll him. I know they're just going to say, you idiot, you dumbass, you juice head. I wouldn't put him in that, but I would like to have him on an interview because I think some people will listen to him. I don't feel everyone, unfortunately, will listen to him. They won't learn from his mistakes, but if a few people could learn from his mistakes, then that's a few people that are saved from serious health issues and possibly death. Yeah, it's too much. Lots of people dropping dead. I agree. We shouldn't have this nonsense. Needs to stop. We should not have bodybuilders dying under the age of, anything under 70 or anything under 60, I'll say, is kind of unnatural. But when you start seeing people in there, just if you follow all these news channels on Instagram, who is the best bodybuilder, Generation Iron, they're always reporting on deaths of, 22-year-old Brazilian dies on stage, and 28-year-old bodybuilder, or 28-year-old figure competitor dies. There's a lot of young bodybuilders and physique competitors dying. It should not be happening. I agree. And again, I think it's this culture of gear porn that we're in right now, with a lot of popular. There's at least 2 or 3 very popular podcasts I can think of that all I've ever seen when I've clicked on them and watched for a few minutes is they have a guest on who is chosen because he or she, it's usually a he, is an advocate for very, very high doses. They give you these testimonials, glowing praise about, I'm on 10 grams of gear a week and 20 IUs of growth, and my results didn't even budge. I didn't get these great results until I went crazy high on these doses. And they're really putting it in young people's heads that not only do we need PEDs to look good, we need extremely large amounts of PEDs to look good. Moderate doses, reasonable doses are not going to do much, if anything, for me. I'll still look the same. If I want to look like that guy, and they do, they're going to want to use what he used. I also, I want to applaud Elliott for not listing his doses, because I guarantee you, there's someone out there, if not a few someones, who would have copied the exact cycle saying, okay, well, he had all these health problems, but I'll be more careful. I'll get blood work and I'll take my blood pressure readings and I'll be okay. But I'll use 10 grams of gear or whatever. I don't know how many grams. I don't know how much he was using, but they would want to use exactly what he's used because they believe that's the secret to him looking the way he does. And of course, I'm not downplaying the role that gear plays in physiques. You don't get this look without certain amounts of gear, but how much? That's where we get into the gray area. Is a gram of gear a week going to make you look like this? No, but I bet he could look like this on 2 to 3 max, 2 to 3 grams max. I know some of you are laughing and saying, you're delusional, you're full of crap, Ron. Nobody can have like a pro bodybuilder physique on 2 or 3 grams. I have spoken to many guys over the years who had no reason to lie to me. They could have told me it was 5 grams. I wouldn't have blinked. I wouldn't have cared. It didn't matter to me if they were on 1 gram or 10 grams. So they had absolutely no reason to lie to me. I wasn't going to be judging them or impressed or either way. And plenty of these guys gave me doses that they were on that were about 2 to 3 grams of gear a week. Growth hormone, I've heard, most of these guys are not on like the 2 to 3 IUs, but I very often hear amounts of like 6 to 10. I rarely hear of 20 until lately. The high GH thing seems to be more of a recent phenomenon. Some guys, Ron, don't need that much. Yes. P Tour, that's Patrick Tour. Patrick Tour is the coach of Keon Pearson, 212 Olympia champion twice, among many other fantastic pro bodybuilders and other physique competitors. Was talking about how one of his athletes, Stephanie Matai, is a freak of nature, growing like a weed with next to nothing PED-wise. I hear this all the time. Coaches will tell me. I mean, George Farah, I'm not going to say who the client was. It was a very, very top pro. Very top pro. And when he started working with him, the very first thing he did was he took his gear doses way down to like a third of what he was using. And this guy looked as good, if not better than ever. So, and he's got other guys. All these coaches will tell me they have a few clients that respond so well to what we would all consider low doses of gear, that there's no reason, if they look good enough and they're winning and they're doing great with, let's just throw a number out there for the sake of argument, with 1,000 milligrams combined, 1 gram of gear a week. Let's just say that's, if you can wrap that around your head, that somebody out there could look like a pro bodybuilder on a gram. There's some people that respond that well to it, which I know some of you are going to be like, no. A lot of you are going to just say, you're delusional, you're a liar, you're just trying to keep us from getting big. We all need to take 8-10 grams of gear. Well, you don't. But again, you would be amazed at how many of these coaches have told me about people. There are people that they work with that respond to pretty small doses. Soul Sergeant, that's Tyrone Singleton, right? I trained with 2 Mr. Olympias and 1 Ms. Olympia. None of them suggested I use steroids. Natural bodybuilding is true bodybuilding. Well, I don't think anyone in good conscience would suggest that you take steroids unless you want to be Mr. Olympia or something like that. You want to be a top pro, and steroids are a necessary evil. They're a necessary part of becoming a pro bodybuilder and becoming a top pro. You're going to need to use some amount of PEDs. You have to. Yes, there are some natural pros. We just had the Ben Weider Natural Cup a couple weeks ago. None of those athletes would do well in non-tested. So I'm glad that they do have that. I think there's another natural pro show that the IFBB Pro League runs as well. So I'm glad that they have that option for them. But the fact of the matter is, if you are a natural bodybuilder and you manage to get your pro card, if you want to compete with the guys who are enhanced and really juiced up and big and huge and full, you're going to have to go that route. You're going to have to go to the dark side, as we used to say. Mark says, the sport tried taking the drug through 1990. The audience was not in support. Natural guys are just not as impressive. Yeah, so what Mark is talking about, in 1990, they tested the 2 big shows that year, the Arnold Classic and the Mr. Olympia. So that was a fiasco. The whole year was a fiasco. What happened in 1990, Sean Ray won the Arnold Classic. I did a whole video about this on my channel if you go back. I did this probably about 3 months ago. He won the Arnold Classic, but the results, I think they tested that day. They didn't get the results back till a few days later. And they said, Sean, sorry, bud, you didn't win. We're stripping you of your title and we're giving it to Mike Ashley. I guess he only had to give the trophy back. Apparently they hadn't given him the paycheck yet, which I think was $60,000, but he didn't get the money. He never got paid. And I think there were 5, 6, 7 guys, I can't recall off the top of my head, who failed the drug test that year and were disqualified from the Arnold. So that was the Arnold. 6 months later, Chicago, Illinois, 1990 Mr. Olympia. They did it again. They drug tested again. A few guys failed. And the guys, a couple guys like Mike Christian, to me, he was definitely still on all kinds of crap. There were rumors going around that the late steroid guru Dan Duchesne was helping Mike and a couple other guys pass the drug tests that were being administered. But long story short, Lee Haney, the reigning champ who had been at 1990, he was already a 6-time champ going into that show, Mr. Olympia champion, did not look like his usual self. He was a little softer. He wasn't as full. He was a lot softer. He was not the usual Lee Haney. Lee Labrada in second place, a little bit softer. Condition was still just as great. A lot of people had him winning, and I believe he was actually ahead of Lee Haney after judging. Somehow in the finals, posing round and so forth, Lee Haney made up the point difference. He was a much bigger man. And Lee Labrada's back was never that great, and Lee Haney had a great back. But the point is, the guys did not, most of the guys in that show didn't look like their usual selves. And Joe Weider, it was his contest. It's called Joe Weider's Mr. Olympia. I think it was Peter McGuff that he said this to, or Peter overheard him saying this to someone. It might have been Bob Goldman, who was in charge of the drug testing. He said, you want these guys to look like worms? Meaning he did not want to continue this drug testing because the wow factor was gone. These guys, even though they had only been off PEDs, off gear for a little while, long enough to pass the test, they still were not looking anywhere near as impressive. So that was the 1 year the IFBB, which at that time there was only one IFBB, they did experiment with drug testing at the Arnold Classic and the Olympia, and never again. It was like, this is not. They tried a few years later to test for diuretics, and a few guys failed, including Jay Cutler, who threatened to sue them because they had not followed the exact IOC, International Olympic Committee, protocols for the tests and the samples. So that was a legitimate case for a lawsuit because you can't do that. If you're going to drug test, you have to follow very, very strict procedures. Let's get another shot of Elliott up there. So I do want to see Elliott do well, guys. I want to see this guy turn pro, do well as a pro. I've never interviewed him. Giles interviewed him on Global Muscle for MD a couple of years ago and seemed like a really cool guy, good head on his shoulders. So I wish him the best, and I do hope he gets past these health issues successfully, of course. He's only 25 years old. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He's got his whole bodybuilding career ahead of him. I would love to see him get back into really good health, resume his bodybuilding again soon with much more reasonable doses and staying away from questionable substances. Some of these research chemicals that there's just no research. They're called research chemicals for a reason. We don't have a bunch of studies on these to prove what happens when you take them in the long term. Steroids, the basic steroids, which he alluded to in his post, the basics work. The basic steroids like testosterone, Deca, Primobolan, these things have been around for 50, 60 years. We've had millions and millions of people use them. We know what happens. We know what the long-term effects are. They're not new substances. They've been around for a very long time, longer than most, even I've been alive. So it's these newer things that we have to be cautious of because, again, they're research chemicals. They have not had human trials. They're not approved as drugs because to be approved as a drug in the United States anyway, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA forces these, they mandate that the pharmaceutical companies go through a very long, very expensive process that takes about 7 years from the time a drug is developed to the time it's finally approved for sale and hits the market. It's not a quick thing. It takes years of studies, and they want all kinds of evidence that these drugs, they want to know every possible side effect that's going to happen from seeing it in large study groups. They want to know the long-term impact to make sure that this is reasonably safe. And if it's not 100% safe, well, they want to know what the risks are so that, like, when you take any of these prescription drugs, there's a long list. Rybelta may cause dizziness, heart palpitation. There's always a long list of things because these research studies that were done by the pharmaceutical companies in the whole process of getting the drug to market, they discovered every single side effect that can occur and the likelihood. They know mathematically they'll say side effects and then they'll say less likely side effects because in smaller proportions of the study groups, certain other side effects happen. Well, in the larger groups, these main symptoms, these main side effects would occur. So Mark says, funny here, usually from Milos, Jay was using 3 different diuretics in 2001. I'm certainly not a diuretic expert. Never was, never will be. I'm sure there was a reason for it. I don't know what the reason was. And again, his coach was Chris Aceto, and Chris is one of the most brilliant minds in coaching. He's been doing it longer than almost anybody else, maybe longer. I'm trying to think of the other people that were around before him or around the same time, and I think most of them have passed away. Joe McNeil, is Joe McNeil still alive? I don't even know. So, yeah, I don't know why he was on 3 different diuretics. Anyway, we got anything else, guys? Appreciate, I do these lives because it's good to have input from you guys, opinions, questions, just so we can have these talks together. So I'm going to get going, guys. Appreciate you all joining me on this. And I wish Elliott Dermond the best. Yeah, Chris Aceto's son looks great. I mean, he's pretty shredded. He's got a great coach. But I wish Elliott Dermond the best. I hope he is back to full health very, very soon. And I hope to see him next year earning that pro card in a safer, healthier way and moving on to the pro ranks where he really and truly belongs. So wishing him the best. Guys, thank you all so much for watching. Please, if you're not already subscribed, do that. Like the video, share the video on your platform, hit that notification bell so you know when we're going to go live. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome weekend. Bye-bye.